This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
314 rushing yards for the Arkansas offense, and they got back to that 2-to-1 ratio run to pass, which seems to be so effective for them. Of course, they were near 50-50 against BYU. Different story against Auburn. Mike Irwin joining us from Pig Trail Nation. Appreciate his time on these Mondays. Mike, how was your weekend, and how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing really good. Had a good weekend.
Good. What'd you take away from the win over the Auburn Tigers? Good. I mean, every win is going to be good. It felt like Arkansas just kind of, I don't know if I'd say Auburn let go of the rope, but you could see in that second half as it went along. That's just it's a team that right now I having a lot of trouble competing in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of it, but I think there were good halftime adjustments by Arkansas. They kind of, I thought maybe they got a little carried away with throwing the ball in the first half and went back to running it more, although they continued to throw it in the second half. But obviously the running game really was much better in the second half. And then the defense, according to those guys, I'm not in that locker room, but they said they got in there and talked about, we haven't won the third quarter all year, and we got to do this. And they went out and shut those guys out. And, to me, the most interesting part of that game was the defense, because all these fans have been complaining about that three-man front. Well, now it's back to four. And so what we say, and I understand why, because this was a team that ran the ball more. So you can't be like the Mississippi State game where they just run right through you. So now they got more guys dedicated to kind of going after the quarterback and stopping the run. But then look where the passing numbers were for Auburn. I think Andy Hodges wrote a column where he talked about the fact that their quarterback had a career day throwing the ball. He had, 280 yards, could have had more. But when you really looked at that, they only had one touchdown pass. So they may have given up yards through the air, but they didn't get damaged heavily. These guys basically scored 2 touchdowns. I mean, they got another one late, but come on. I mean, Pittman put the 2s in there on defense, and they sort of just gave that one up. So I thought overall it was a good effort. I noticed one fan on social media said, big deal, you beat the worst team in the West and the worst team in the conference other than Vanderbilt. And when you look at it, well, A&M's still down there in Florida. They're with Auburn in terms of conference wins. So maybe they're not the worst. I don't know. But, anytime you can go to Auburn and win, I think you got to be happy.
Yeah, it's tough to win on the road. Excuse me. It's tough to win on the road here in the SEC. Having 10 penalties on this Arkansas team, how is that? What's your thoughts on that this late in the year against a bad team? They kind of did look a little sloppy at times, especially early on.
Yeah, again, I'm probably making excuses. I don't know. It's just my impression, and you've been through this. I haven't. I don't know what happens on an open date week. But with this one in particular, where they didn't really do anything that open date except walk through some things, and there was more of an emphasis on just getting people healthy. Maybe when you have that layoff, you kind of come back and you got to acclimate yourself again, and maybe that had something to do with the mistakes early, because Auburn went through an open date too, and they had a lot of penalties. You look at KJ on that opening drive where he made that mistake where he's going to be sacked, and he just had a brain freeze and threw the ball up and got the penalty too, and then it backed him all the way up. So, yeah, there were mistakes. But if you can overcome them, I don't know. I always looked at mistakes as, okay, if you lose a game, people start talking about mistakes. You win the game, who cares? Unless it's the next week and you're worried about those same mistakes.
It's interesting. I don't know how many people might have, said the idea that who cares? It's Auburn. Look, the worst team in the West right now is Auburn. Second worst is Texas A&M, and Arkansas should have beaten them. I don't think Arkansas is in a position where anybody that's connected to the program or fans can just look at a win in the SEC, especially in a place you hadn't won in 10 years, and be like, oh, who cares? They're no good right now. It doesn't matter. It's a league win. It counts in the standings. The bowl selection committees are going to look at these numbers at the end of the season. This was a huge win. I don't care who it was against.
Yeah, well, you never see players or coaches say that because they're the ones that work to put the products on the field. fans, we're not playing with it. We're playing with somebody else's money when you make those statements. You didn't have to go through all that 2 weeks to get to where you were, so you can just make that statement. Who cares? But whoever wrote that, and I forgot, it was just some guy on Facebook that I looked at, but you take him, stick his butt out there and work him all 2 weeks and then stick him out on that field, and I guarantee he's not going to say who cares. That's just a fan thing. It's always been that way.
Mike, can you talk about getting healthier in that bye week? How did the lineup end up after this Auburn game? Is everybody pretty healthy? How are we looking going into this Liberty matchup? Should we be worried as long as we show up and we're healthy? Should we be able to handle Liberty this next week?
Well, Pittman's having his press conference here in a little bit, and we'll find out if anybody came out of that we don't know about. But it looks good. I didn't hear, there was this big rumor all week long because some of the guys that have been to practice over there saw Hazelwood come off the field with what looked like a knee injury, and yet Pittman's got these rules. If I'm going to let you in practice, I don't want you reporting this stuff. So nobody said it, but everybody was wondering, is this guy going to play? And then he did play. So I think they're all right. They certainly, because they got a lot of these guys back in the secondary, I'm sure that's why Odom kind of went back to that four-man front. He felt like he could. So, but this stuff comes and goes. You're healthy one week doesn't mean you'll be healthy the next week. And what I think is funny is fans always think that if you play a better team, you're more likely to be injured. Like if you play Vanderbilt, you're not going to get any injuries, whereas if you play Alabama, you're going to have all these injuries. And there's no evidence of that. A lot of times injuries are random, just crazy stuff. A guy's running free, and then all of a sudden something steps wrong, and now he's got a high ankle sprain or a knee, tears up a knee or whatever. Offensive linemen falling in piles around each other. If you're an offensive lineman and you're bumping into eeach other and there's a collapse and everybody's falling and you're in the bottom of the pile, some 330-pound guy falls on your shoulder or your arm, you're gone. You never know when that's going to happen. It's just random.
Sounds to me, though, we're going to get news from Coach Pittman today about Dominique Johnson. He hinted about that after the game on Saturday, but didn't get into the details. But he said something happened Thursday, which sounds like something happened at practice to Dominique. And at this point in the season, with another injury for him, it's like we've been talking like they're going to get to a three-man rotation. They've been at a three-man rotation at running back for a while now, but now it looks like James Joyner's going to be the fourth because I don't know if we'll see Neek again this year.
He was rehabbing, a knee injury, and I guess they thought he was okay. And I think he's played in a couple of games. I didn't go look and see how many. He can redshirt. I'm sure of that. And that's my thinking, is that whatever's going on there, he's never redshirted. So he'll come back next year as a redshirt junior, and maybe he's had more time to kind of rehab whatever this is. It might not even be the knee. It could be something else. But that's what I'm guessing, is that he never was completely right with that knee, and maybe it wasn't an injury. They just finally realized they just finally realized he's not ready. I don't know. We'll find out here in a little while.
Yeah, we talk about KJ. He's obviously the leader of this team, but can you just talk about the season Rocket Sanders is having? Back-to-back weeks where he's averaging 10 yards a carry. He's kind of, it makes it a little easier when you're a quarterback, when your running back's getting 10 yards a carry.
This guy is so deceptive. You look at him and you watch the way he runs, and you say, okay, he's a power back. He doesn't really have speed. And then you see him on that one run where he went 70 or whatever.
Bursted.
And he's got a D-back chasing him. And the guy finally caught him, but it's not like he ran him down like really bad. He's deceptive, and he's that good combination of power and quickness and speed. And I don't know. I just think sometimes, this is just my belief, but sometimes when you're struggling in the first half and you come back, and I think a lot of times it's the offensive line. People forget they're the guys up front opening the holes, and maybe they're not doing their job, and then they get in the locker room at halftime and start getting their butts chewed out, and then boom, all of a sudden, here he goes. So I think whatever Rocket is, he's doing that behind this O-line, which I think is one of the better ones we've had in a while. But the guys, somebody asked me, can he be D-Mac? And this was a couple of weeks ago. I said, come on, that's a stretch. I mean, I don't think he's going to be a runner-up Heisman 2 years in a row, so probably not. He starts this season 500 career yards behind him because Rocket had 500 his freshman year. D-Mac had over 1,000, so he's about 500 behind him, but he's right on track right now to maybe even have a better sophomore year than D-Mac did. So if he keeps at it, I think if he played all 4 years, he'd break his record if he keeps this up.
If he keeps this up, he'll be going to the league after 3 years.
Yeah,
he has
probably.
You're probably right. But it's fun, man. I like seeing that number 5 back there run the rock like that. It's in that 76-yard run. Yeah, you got to have some speed. Like Phil said, you went in there against Auburn, a hostile environment. I know they're not that good, but we hadn't been that good on the road, and they do have some scholarship players over there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was the right approach because they have been giving up yards. You've been doing that. I mean, you look at A&M. I mean, they're struggling. But the one thing Ole Miss had been doing is giving up a lot of yards rushing. Now, they get a lot of yards rushing, but they give it up a lot, and they did in that game. So, coaching is not just amazing strategy. Some of it's no-brainer stuff. You look at the stats. You're going in to play Auburn. Hey, we need to run the ball on these guys. And like I said, I thought they threw it maybe a little too much in the first half, got the balance right in the second half, and boom, all of a sudden you're over 300 yards rushing. And I don't know how you felt about this, Matt, as a quarterback. I'm not a big, rushing, passing, argue all that stuff. To me, it's just whatever works. I don't care. I mean, you threw for touchdowns, you ran for touchdowns. What difference does it make?
That's exactly right, and I'll tell you what, Mike. That's how everybody should feel up there, and that's how we were when we played. We didn't care if it was a running touchdown or who scored. We just wanted to get that victory, and they seem to be playing like that. You look at the defensive side of the ball, guys like Bumper Pool, how much it means to them. Talking about the loss for a couple years ago, it seems like I mean, it'd be a fun team to be a part of.
Yeah, they were having fun after the game. Somebody asked Bumper about that onside kick that got called back, which he almost ran back. That's the second time he's done that this year. And he says, I just like running with the football. It's fun to run with the football. Running backs and quarterbacks, they know that feeling. Other guys don't. And when you get that rare chance, I was in high school one time and we were beating a fool out of some team, and one of these running backs was one of my good friends. I was up front, and he said, hey, let's switch places. I want you to carry the ball. And I'm going, no, I don't think so. And he said, the coach will get mad at us. And he goes, come on, let's do it. Who cares? It's the last game of the year. What's he going to do? And, he almost talked me into it. But he said, man, it's that feeling when you got that ball in your hand and you're running. It's like nothing else in football. So I guess Bumper had that feeling.
Mike, I know I want to go to Florida. I know fans want to go there too. I think the team would like to go play in a warm weather bowl game. And they're in the same position they were last year with the same record in the final 4 games. What do they need to get there? 7 wins going to be enough? I've heard some people talk about the idea that the Gator Bowl, maybe 7 is enough. 8 certainly is enough to get you there, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Liberty Bowl, come on, no. I'm just sorry. I never have liked that bowl. Music City, okay. But let's face it, everybody wants to go to Florida. It's fun to go down there. You're getting to go somewhere warm when it starts to get cold around here. And there's just something about the idea of being in a Florida Bowl. They got to win this week. I think they've got to either beat Ole Miss or LSU, one of those two. And then if you do that, then I think you're okay. I think if you do that and you're just assuming you beat Missouri, I think they will, then you're where you were last year at the end of the regular season. You could still end up winning 9 games if you win a bowl game.
Well, I'm going to assume they beat Missouri, but I think South Carolina might have done the same thing, so we'll have to hold on out on that for a moment.
This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.